They said the Alpha King could never have an heir. They said the poison ended his bloodline. They said the woman who left him was right to walk away. Without family or future, Cecily Turlow never imagined she would be chosen to serve in the private wing of the Sterile King. People said the castle changed men. That serving Clyde Cross meant learning silence quickly. There were whispers about his first marriage, about a sacrifice, about a verdict that destroyed him. Cecily learned the rules fast. Keep your head down, do not linger, do not ask questions, and never mistake the stillness of the Alpha King for peace. But something strange began to happen. The king's pain eased when she was near. His strength returned, and no one could explain why. Then Cecily discovered something impossible. Something that would get her killed if anyone found out. She fled at dawn. Clyde hunted her across the entire realm. Not with certainty, with need. And when he finally found her, when the truth came out, it shattered everything he believed about himself. What no one questioned was why the poison stopped hurting him, and why it only happened after the servant arrived. Cecily Turlow stood outside the iron gates of the royal castle, her single bag pressed against her chest. The morning fog clung to the stone walls like something alive, something waiting. She was 23 years old. She had survived 3 years in a village where women like her disappeared without questions. She had cleaned houses for families who barely looked at her. She had learned to move through rooms like air, invisible. That was why they chose her. The housekeeper, Mabel Haskins, met her at the servants' entrance. She was a woman built from sharp angles and silence. Her eyes moved over Cecily once, then looked away. "You were told the rules?" Cecily nodded. "Say them." Cecily's voice came out steady. She had practiced. "Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not linger in his presence. Do not ask questions. Do not stare." Mabel's mouth thinned. "And do not mistake his stillness for peace." Mabel studied her for 3 long seconds. Then she turned and walked inside. Cecily followed. The castle swallowed sound. Their footsteps echoed against stone floors that had seen centuries of blood and power. Torches burned in iron brackets along the walls, casting shadows that moved like living things. "You will serve the private wing," Mabel said without looking back. "No one else is assigned there. No one else wants to be." Cecily's fingers tightened around her bag. "Why?" Mabel stopped. She turned slowly, and for the first time, something like pity crossed her face. "Because Alpha King Clyde Cross does not want company. He wants silence, and women who can provide it without breaking." Cecily swallowed. "What happened to the last servant?" She asked too many questions. They climbed 3 flights of stairs. The air grew colder with each step. When they reached the top, Mabel pushed open a heavy wooden door. The private wing stretched before them. Long, dark, empty. "His chambers are at the end," Mabel said. "You will clean. You will bring meals. You will leave quickly. If he dismisses you, you go. If he is in pain, you do not interfere. The healers handle him." Cecily nodded again. Mabel leaned closer. Her voice dropped to something almost kind. "Listen to me, girl. The king is not cruel. But he is broken, and broken men are dangerous in ways you cannot predict. Do your work. Keep your head down. Survive." Then she left. Cecily stood alone in the hallway. She could hear her own heartbeat. Nothing else. She walked toward the chambers at the end of the hall. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she reached the door, she knocked twice. Silence. She knocked again. "Enter." The voice was low, controlled, empty. Cecily pushed the door open. The chamber was massive. Stone walls lined with bookshelves. A fireplace that could swallow a man. Windows covered with heavy curtains. And in the center of the room, standing with his back to her, was Alpha King Clyde Cross. He did not turn. Cecily kept her eyes down. She had been warned, do not stare, but she could feel him. The weight of his presence pressed against the room like a storm held back by will alone. "You are the new servant." It was not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty." Silence stretched between them. Cecily counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. "What is your name?" "Cecily Turlow, Your Majesty." How old are you? 23. Another pause. You were told the rules. Yes, Your Majesty. Good. He still had not turned. Cecily stood frozen, unsure if she should leave or wait. You may go, he said finally. Cecily bowed, even though he could not see her, and left quickly. She closed the door behind her and pressed her back against the stone wall. Her hands were shaking. She had not seen his face. She had not needed to. She had felt his grief. The days blurred together. Cecily learned the rhythm of the private wing. She arrived before dawn. She cleaned the chambers while Clyde was meeting with his council. She left meals outside his door and returned hours later to find them barely touched. She never spoke unless spoken to. She never lingered. She never asked questions. But she noticed things. She noticed the way he moved carefully, as if his body hurt in ways he refused to show. She noticed the healers who came and went, their faces tight with frustration. She noticed the empty wine bottles that appeared more frequently, and she noticed the silence. It was not peaceful. It was the silence of something buried alive. On her 7th day, she was changing the linens when she heard a sound behind her, a sharp intake of breath. She turned. Clyde stood near the window, one hand braced against the stone wall. His other hand was pressed to his side. His face was pale, his jaw locked tight. Cecily froze. Do not interfere. But his knees buckled. Cecily moved without thinking. She crossed the room and caught his arm before he could fall. He was heavier than she expected. Solid, warm. He jerked away from her, but his legs would not hold him. He sank into the chair beside the window, breathing hard. Cecily stepped back immediately. I'm sorry. Leave. His voice was raw. Cecily hesitated. His hand was still pressed to his side. His breathing was uneven. Wrong. Your Majesty, should I call the healers? I said leave. She bowed and turned toward the door. But before she reached it, she heard his voice again. Quieter this time. Wait. She stopped. Clyde did not look at her. He stared out the window, his jaw tight. Bring water and a cloth. Cecily moved quickly. She found the basin near the washstand and soaked a clean cloth. She brought it to him and placed it on the table beside his chair. Then she stepped back. Clyde took the cloth. He pressed it against the back of his neck and closed his eyes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then his breathing began to even out. The tension in his shoulders eased. The pain in his face softened. Cecily watched in silence. When he finally opened his eyes, he looked at her for the first time. His eyes were gray, storm-colored, exhausted. You may go. Cecily bowed and left. She did not know why his pain had eased. She did not know it had anything to do with her, but something had shifted, and neither of them could go back. That night, Cecily lay awake in her small room in the servants' quarters. She stared at the ceiling and tried to understand what she had felt in that moment. Not attraction, not pity, recognition. She had seen that kind of pain before. Not in a king, in herself. The pain of being unwanted, abandoned, forgotten. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but all she could see was the way Clyde had looked at her, like he was surprised she had stayed. The next morning, Cecily arrived early. She cleaned the chambers quickly and quietly. When she brought breakfast, she knocked twice and waited. Enter. She pushed the door open. Clyde was standing near the fireplace, his back to her. He looked stronger today. Steadier. Cecily set the tray on the table and turned to leave. Cecily. She stopped. He had never used her name before. Yes, Your Majesty? He turned to face her. His expression was unreadable. Yesterday. You stayed when I told you to leave. Cecily's heart pounded. I'm sorry. I thought, do not apologize. He crossed the room slowly. He stopped a few feet away from her, close enough that she could see the exhaustion carved into his face, the weight he carried. I am not used to people who stay, he said quietly. Cecily did not know what to say. Clyde studied her for a moment longer. Then he nodded once. You may go. Cecily bowed and left. But as she walked down the long hallway, she realized something. The Alpha King was not cruel. He was lonely, and loneliness She understood. "Hey, quick question. How are you feeling today? Thank you so much for being here. It really means the world to me." If you want to know what happens when an invisible servant unknowingly heals a king, the entire realm called broken, when impossible hope collides with dangerous truth, and when a man declared sterile must choose between his crown and the future he never thought he'd have. Please hit that subscribe button for Ariel Romance Library, smash the like, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. Alright, thank you. Now let's dive into the story of the Alpha King, who thought he'd never have an heir, until she made him the father of twins. Clyde Cross had been married for 7 years without an heir. The court did not speak of it openly, but the whispers lived in every corner, in every glance, in every silence that stretched too long. Cecily learned the story in pieces. From Mabel, from the other servants, from the way the healers looked at Clyde when they thought no one was watching. 1 month after his wedding, rogues attacked during a border conflict. They trapped his new Luna, Lorena McGraw, in an ambush meant to kill her. Clyde went after her himself. He did not send soldiers. He did not wait for reinforcements. He went alone. The battle lasted 3 hours. Clyde killed every rogue who stood in his way. 12 men, trained fighters. He tore through them like they were nothing. And when he finally reached Lorena, when he finally pulled her from the burning cabin where they had trapped her, a blade found his side, poisoned. The healers said he was fortunate. The poison should have killed him within hours. But Clyde survived. His body fought. His strength held. The court celebrated. No one realized the poison had not finished its work. It stayed, quiet, patient, carving away at something deeper than flesh. 7 years passed. No child came. At first, the healers blamed stress. Then they blamed Lorena. Then they ran out of excuses. They examined Clyde in every way they knew. They tried remedies from every corner of the realm. Old magic, new science, prayers to the moon. Nothing worked. Finally, they spoke the word no king ever once spoken about him. Sterile. The court erupted. Some demanded a new Luna. Others whispered about succession. A few suggested Clyde step down, but it was Lorena who delivered the final blow. She left him. Publicly. She stood before the council and accused him of wasting her life, of stealing her future, of failing her as a man and a king. She walked out of the castle with her head high and her bags packed. Clyde did not stop her. He sealed his heart that day. He ruled without warmth. The castle became silent around him, and he vowed never to marry again. Cecily did not learn all of this at once. She learned it the way servants always learn things, through whispers in the kitchen, through overheard conversations, through the way people looked at Clyde when he passed. But she also learned it through him, through the way he moved, through the pain that never fully left his face, through the silence that followed him like a shadow. 2 weeks after she started working in the private wing, Cecily was cleaning the study when she found the letters. They were tucked into a drawer in Clyde's desk. Old, worn, written in a woman's hand. She should not have read them, but she did. The first letter was from Lorena, written 3 years into their marriage. Clyde, the healers say there is still hope. I want to believe them. But every month that passes feels like a door closing. I do not know how much longer I can wait. L. The second letter was written 4 years later. Clyde, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot watch you suffer. I cannot watch myself fade. We were supposed to build a future. Instead, we are burying one. I'm sorry. L. There was no third letter. Cecily closed the drawer carefully. Her hands were shaking. She did not know why she felt angry. Lorena had every right to leave. No one should be forced to stay in a marriage that caused them pain. But Cecily had seen the way Clyde carried that pain. Like it was his fault. Like he deserved it. And something about that made her chest ache. That night, Clyde called for her. It was late. The castle was dark. Cecily had been about to return to her quarters when a servant knocked on her door. The king wants you. Cecily's stomach twisted. She followed the servant up the stairs and down the long hallway. When she entered Clyde's chambers, she found him standing near the window. He was dressed simply. No crown, no formal robes, just a man staring out at the night. You called for me, Your Majesty. Clyde did not turn. Close the door. Cecily obeyed. Her heart pounded. Come here. She crossed the room slowly. She stopped a few feet behind him. Clyde's voice was quiet. Do you know what they say about me? Cecily hesitated. I've heard stories. Tell me. She swallowed. They say you saved your Luna from rogues, that you were poisoned, that you survived. What else? Cecily's hands clenched at her sides. They say the poison took your future. Clyde turned to face her. His expression was unreadable. Do you believe them? Cecily met his eyes. I believe you're still here. Something flickered across his face. Surprise. Maybe pain. Still here, he repeated softly. Yes, I suppose I am. He turned back to the window. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Clyde said, I feel different lately. Cecily frowned. Different how? Less pain, more strength. He paused. The healers do not understand it. Neither do I. Cecily's breath caught. She remembered the way his pain had eased when she brought him water, the way his breathing had steadied when she stayed, but she said nothing. Clyde glanced at her. You may go. Cecily bowed and turned toward the door. But before she left, she heard his voice again. Cecily. She stopped. Thank you for staying. She did not know what to say, so she simply nodded and left. The healers began to notice the change 3 weeks later. Clyde's symptoms were inconsistent. Some days he was strong. Other days the pain returned. They could not explain it. Rufus Voss, the head healer, examined Clyde for the 3rd time that month. He checked his pulse, his breathing, his reflexes. Your Majesty, your body is responding to something, but I cannot identify what. Clyde's jaw tightened. Is the poison still active? Rufus hesitated. I believe so, but it is weakening. How? I do not know. Clyde dismissed him. That night, he called for Cecily again. When she entered, he was sitting by the fire. He looked exhausted, but there was something else in his face. Something that looked almost like hope. Sit. Cecily's eyes widened. Your Majesty, Sit. She obeyed. She sat in the chair across from him, her hands folded in her lap. Clyde studied her in silence. The firelight cast shadows across his face. How long have you been here? He asked. 5 weeks, Your Majesty. And before that? I worked in the village, cleaning houses. Family? Cecily's throat tightened. None. Clyde nodded slowly. Then we have that in common. Cecily looked down at her hands. She did not know what to say. I was married once, Clyde said quietly. Did you know that? Yes. She left me. Cecily met his eyes. I know. Do you know why? She hesitated. Because she wanted children. Clyde's expression hardened. Because I could not give her children. Because the poison stole that from me. Because I failed her. Cecily's chest ached. You saved her life. And she still left. The words hung in the air between them. Cecily leaned forward slightly. Your Majesty, may I speak freely? Clyde's eyes narrowed. Go ahead. She left because she was in pain, not because you failed. People leave when the weight becomes too much. That does not make you worthless. Clyde stared at her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he stood. You may go. Cecily rose and bowed. But as she turned to leave, she heard his voice again, softer this time. You are the first person to say that. Cecily looked back at him. Clyde was still standing by the fire. His shoulders were tense, his hands clenched at his sides, but his eyes were clear. Good night, Cecily. Good night, Your Majesty. She left, and for the first time in 7 years, Clyde believed someone might understand. Cecily's hands were always steady. She learned this about herself in the private wing. No matter how close Clyde stood, no matter how his presence filled the room, her hands did not shake. She brought him water in the mornings. She changed his linens while he met with the council. She left meals that he rarely finished and returned hours later to clear them away. She asked no questions. She did not pity him. She simply stayed, and slowly, something began to change. Clyde's pain eased, not all at once, Not in ways the healers could measure, but in small moments, in breaths that came easier, in mornings where he did not wake up feeling like his body was at war with itself. He noticed it most when Cecily was near. At first, he thought it was coincidence, but the pattern repeated itself. On days when she cleaned his chambers, when she brought him water, when her presence lingered even after she left, the pain dulled. On days when she was assigned elsewhere, it returned. Rufus Voss could not explain it. Neither could Clyde, but he stopped questioning it. 6 weeks into her assignment, Cecily entered the chambers to find Clyde standing near the window. He was shirtless. His back was to her. She froze. Scars covered his skin. Old wounds, battle marks, and along his left side, a jagged line that looked like it had been carved by something vicious. The poisoned blade. Clyde turned slightly. He saw her staring. Cecily dropped her eyes immediately. "I'm sorry. I should have knocked." "You did knock. I should have waited." "Cecily." She stopped. Clyde crossed the room slowly. He stopped a few feet away from her. He was close enough that she could see the exhaustion carved into his face, the weight he carried. "Do they frighten you?" he asked quietly. Cecily looked up at him. "No." "Disgust you?" "No." Clyde's jaw tightened. They disgusted her. Cecily's chest ached. She knew he meant Lorena. Then she did not look closely enough. Cecily said softly. Clyde stared at her, his expression unreadable. "What do you see?" he asked. Cecily's breath caught. She should not answer. She should bow and leave and remember her place. But his eyes held hers, and she spoke anyway. "I see a man who fought for someone he loved, who sacrificed his body to save her, who survived something that should have killed him." She paused. "I see strength." Clyde's throat moved. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Clyde stepped back. "You may go." Cecily bowed and left, but her hands were shaking now. That night, Mabel found Cecily in the servants' hall. "You've been summoned again." Cecily's stomach twisted. "Why?" Mabel's expression was unreadable. "The king does not explain himself." Cecily climbed the stairs slowly. When she reached the private wing, she found Clyde sitting by the fire. He looked different tonight, less guarded, more present. "Sit." Cecily obeyed. She sat in the chair across from him. Clyde did not look at her. He stared into the flames. "I have been thinking about what you said," he began quietly. Cecily waited. "You said I survived, that I am still here." He paused. "But survival is not the same as living." Cecily's throat tightened. Clyde finally looked at her. His eyes were storm gray, exhausted, honest. "I have not lived in 7 years, Cecily. I have ruled, I have endured, but I have not lived." Cecily leaned forward slightly. "Why?" "Because living requires hope. And I buried mine the day she left." The words hit Cecily like a blow. She understood that feeling. She had buried her own hope years ago. When her family died. When she learned that being invisible was safer than being seen. "Maybe hope is not something you bury," she said softly. "Maybe it is something you grow again." Clyde's jaw clenched. "How?" Slowly. He stared at her. And for the first time, something in his expression shifted. Not desire. Not yet. Curiosity. The healers examined Clyde again 2 weeks later. Rufus Voss stood in the council chamber, his face tight with confusion. "Your Majesty, your symptoms are improving. Significantly." Clyde's hands clenched on the arms of his chair. "The poison?" "Still present, but weakening." Rufus hesitated. "I have never seen anything like this." Harlan Finch, Clyde's chief advisor, leaned forward. "Is it possible the poison is simply running its course?" "No. Poison like this does not fade on its own. Something is neutralizing it." Clyde's eyes narrowed. "What?" "I do not know." Silence filled the chamber. Then Emmett Bonner, captain of the guard, spoke. "Your Majesty, is there anything different in your routine? Anything new?" Clyde thought for a moment. Then his breath caught. "Cecily." Harlan frowned. "The servant?" Clyde stood. How long has she been assigned to the private wing? 2 months, Emmett said. 2 months. The same amount of time his pain had been easing. Clyde turned to Rufus. Is it possible she has healer's blood? Rufus hesitated. There are old bloodlines, ancestral magic, not spells or rituals. Something. Instinctive. But it is rare. Test her. Your Majesty. Test her. Cecily was summoned to the healer's wing the next morning. She stood in the cold stone room while Rufus examined her. He checked her pulse, her breathing. He asked her questions about her family, her history. Do you know if your ancestors practiced healing? He asked. Cecily shook her head. I know nothing about my ancestors. Rufus frowned. He pressed his hand against her wrist and closed his eyes. After a long moment, he opened them again. You carry healer's blood, he said quietly. Cecily's breath caught. What? It is old. Instinctive. You may not even realize when you are using it. Cecily's mind raced. I've never healed anyone. Not consciously. But your presence, your touch, they carry healing. Cecily felt the ground shift beneath her. Does the king know? She whispered. Rufus nodded. He is the one who asked me to test you. Clyde was waiting for her in his chambers when she returned. He stood near the window, his hands clasped behind his back. He did not turn when she entered. Rufus told me, he said quietly. Cecily's throat tightened. I did not know. I believe you. Silence stretched between them. Then Clyde turned to face her. His expression was unreadable. You have been healing me, he said, without knowing it, without trying. Cecily nodded slowly. Clyde crossed the room. He stopped a few feet away from her. Do you understand what this means? He asked. Cecily's breath caught. The poison is weakening. Yes. You might recover. Yes. Cecily's heart pounded. Your Majesty, that is... It means I am not broken. The words came out raw. Broken themselves. Cecily stared at him. She saw the hope in his eyes, the fear beneath it. You were never broken, she said softly. Clyde's jaw clenched. Then why did she leave? Cecily stepped closer, close enough to see the exhaustion carved into his face. The weight he carried, because she was in pain. Because she did not know how to stay. That was her choice. Not your fault. Clyde's breath hitched, and before either of them could stop it, he reached for her. His hand cupped her cheek. Gentle, hesitant. Cecily froze. Clyde's eyes searched hers. I do not know how to hope again. Cecily's hand rose slowly. She covered his hand with hers. Then let me hope for both of us. Clyde's eyes closed. His forehead dropped against hers. And for the first time in 7 years, he felt something other than pain. He felt alive. 3 months after Cecily arrived at the castle, the council erupted. A border dispute with a neighboring pack threatened to escalate into war. The council demanded action. Some wanted diplomacy. Others wanted blood. Clyde listened to them argue for 4 hours. When he finally dismissed them, his body felt like stone. His jaw ached from clenching. His side burned where the poison still lingered. He stood alone in the council chamber, staring at the map spread across the table. War. Again. He was so tired of war. A knock sounded at the door. Enter. Cecily stepped inside. She carried a tray with water and bread. She moved quietly across the room and set it on the table beside him. Mabel thought you might need this. Clyde did not look at her. Mabel was right. Cecily turned to leave. Stay. She stopped. Her breath caught. Clyde finally looked at her. His eyes were exhausted. Honest. Please. Cecily set the tray down and sat in the chair across from him. She folded her hands in her lap and waited. Clyde sat down slowly. He pressed his palms against his eyes and breathed. I am tired, Cecily. Her chest ached. I know. I am tired of ruling alone, of carrying this weight, of pretending I am strong enough. Cecily leaned forward. You are strong enough. Clyde lowered his hands. His eyes met hers. Am I? Yes. He stared at her, and something in his expression broke. I do not feel strong when you are near, he said quietly. I feel human. Cecily's breath hitched. Clyde stood slowly. He crossed the room until he stood in front of her. He looked down at her with an intensity that made her heart pound. "Tell me to stop," he said softly. Cecily's throat tightened. "Stop what?" "Hoping." Her eyes burned. "I won't." Clyde's hand rose slowly. He cupped her cheek. His thumb brushed against her skin. "I do not know how to do this," he whispered. Cecily's hand covered his. "Neither do I." "Then we will learn together." He leaned down and kissed her. It was not rough. It was not desperate. It was careful. Gentle. A question more than a claim. Cecily's hands rose to his chest. She felt his heartbeat beneath her palms. Strong, steady, alive. When Clyde pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. His breath came uneven. "I have not done this in 7 years," he admitted. Cecily's eyes closed. "I have never done this at all." Clyde pulled back slightly. His eyes searched hers. "Never?" She shook her head. Something shifted in his expression. Not pity, not hesitation. Reverence. "Then I will be careful," he promised. They did not rush. Clyde led her to his chambers. He locked the door behind them. He built up the fire until the room glowed with warmth. Then he turned to her. "Are you certain?" he asked. Cecily's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "Yes." Clyde crossed the room slowly. He stopped in front of her and cupped her face in both hands. "If you want me to stop, you tell me. Do you understand?" Cecily nodded. He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. His hands moved to her waist. He lifted her easily and carried her to the bed. He laid her down gently and knelt beside her. "You are beautiful," he whispered. Cecily's breath caught. No one had ever said that to her before. Clyde's hands moved carefully. He unlaced her dress slowly, giving her time to stop him. When she did not, he slid the fabric from her shoulders. Cecily's heart pounded. She felt exposed, vulnerable. But Clyde's eyes were not hungry. They were reverent. "Perfect," he murmured. He kissed her shoulder, her collarbone, the base of her throat. Cecily's hands rose to his shirt. She fumbled with the laces. Clyde stilled her hands gently and finished unlacing it himself. When he pulled the shirt over his head, Cecily saw the scars again, the jagged line along his side. She reached out slowly and traced it with her fingers. Clyde's breath hitched. "Does it hurt?" she whispered. "Not when you touch it." Cecily leaned forward and pressed her lips against the scar. Clyde's hands clenched in her hair. His breath came faster. "Cecily." She looked up at him. Clyde's eyes were dark, intense. "If we do this, I will not let you go." Cecily's throat tightened. "I do not want you to." That was all he needed. They came together slowly, carefully. Clyde's hands guided her. His voice murmured reassurances. His body moved with a gentleness that made her chest ache. It hurt at first. Cecily bit her lip and breathed through it. Clyde stilled immediately. "Do you want me to stop?" "No." "Cecily, please, do not stop." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips, and then he moved again, slowly, gently. The pain faded. Something else replaced it. Warmth, connection, belonging. Cecily's hands gripped his shoulders. Her breath came faster. Clyde's forehead pressed against hers. His breath mingled with hers. "You are mine," he whispered. Cecily's eyes closed. "Yes, say it. I am yours." Clyde's control shattered. He moved faster, harder. His hands gripped her hips. His breath came ragged. Cecily cried out. Not in pain. In something deeper. When they finally broke together, Clyde collapsed beside her. He pulled her against his chest and held her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. "Do not leave me," he whispered. Cecily's hand pressed against his heart. "I won't." He kissed the top of her head. And for the first time in 7 years, Clyde believed in something beyond survival. He believed in hope. They lay together in silence. Clyde's hand traced patterns along Cecily's spine. Her head rested against his chest. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Clyde's hand stilled. "What do you mean?" "I am a servant. You are a king. This cannot..." It can. Cecily lifted her head. The court will never accept it. Clyde's jaw tightened. I do not care what the court accepts. Clyde, do not argue with me on this. Cecily stared at him. It was the first time he had used his authority with her, but there was no cruelty in it, only certainty. I have spent 7 years letting others dictate my worth, he said quietly. I will not let them dictate yours. Cecily's eyes burned. What if they force you to choose? Clyde's hand cupped her cheek. Then I choose you. Cecily's breath hitched. Clyde leaned down and kissed her softly. Sleep, he murmured. We will face tomorrow together. Cecily closed her eyes. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in her life, she was not alone. 6 weeks later, Cecily realized something was wrong. She woke up nauseous. Her body felt strange, off. At first, she thought it was exhaustion. She had been spending more nights in Clyde's chambers, less time sleeping, but the nausea did not fade. It grew worse. One morning, she could not keep down her breakfast. She vomited twice before noon. Mabel found her in the washroom, pale and shaking. Girl, when was your last bleeding? Cecily froze. Her last bleeding. She tried to remember. Weeks ago. Maybe longer. Mabel's eyes widened. Oh, child. Cecily's hands shook. No, it cannot be. Have you been with someone? Cecily did not answer. She did not need to. Mabel grabbed her arm. Who? Cecily pulled away. Her breath came fast. Panicked. I need to see a healer. Cecily. Now, Rufus Voss examined her in silence. When he finished, his face was grim. You are pregnant. Cecily's world tilted. Pregnant. She pressed a hand to her stomach. Her breath came in short gasps. How far along? She whispered. 6 weeks. Maybe 7. 6 weeks. The night in the council chamber. The night everything changed. Cecily's eyes burned. Rufus leaned forward. Who is the father? Cecily shook her head. It does not matter. Cecily, if you need protection, I need to leave. Rufus frowned. What? Cecily stood. Her legs shook beneath her. I need to leave the castle. Tonight. Cecily, please, do not tell anyone. Rufus stared at her. Then understanding dawned in his eyes. It's the king. Cecily did not answer. She turned and ran. Cecily packed her bag with shaking hands. 1 dress, 1 cloak, the small amount of silver she had saved. It was not enough, but it would have to be. She moved quickly through the servants' quarters. Most of the staff were at dinner. No one saw her slip out the side door. The night air was cold against her face. Cecily pulled her cloak tighter and walked toward the gates. She did not look back. She could not. Because if she looked back, she would see Clyde's chambers. She would see the window where he stood every night. She would remember the way he held her, the way he whispered her name, and she would not be able to leave. But she had to leave, because the Alpha King had been declared sterile, because the court would call her child a lie, because they would execute her for treason, and Clyde would not be able to stop them. Cecily reached the village by dawn. She found a small inn and paid for a room. The innkeeper, a woman named Pearl Doolin, asked no questions. Cecily locked the door behind her and collapsed on the bed, her hands pressed against her stomach. A child. Clyde's child. She should have been joyful. But all she felt was terror, because she knew what the court would do. She had heard the stories. Women who falsely claimed royal heirs were executed publicly, their bodies burned, their names erased, and no one would believe her. Why would they? The king was sterile. The healers had declared it. 7 years of marriage without a child had proven it. Cecily's pregnancy would be seen as proof of her betrayal, not of Clyde's healing. She closed her eyes and tried to breathe. She had to run. Farther. Faster. She had to disappear. Back at the castle, Clyde stood in the empty chambers. He stared at the bed. The sheets were still rumpled from the night before. Cecily's scent lingered in the air, but she was gone. Mabel had found him an hour ago. She had knocked hesitantly and delivered the news with her eyes down. Your Majesty, Cecily Turlough is missing. Clyde's world stopped. What do you mean, missing? She left the castle last night. No one saw her go. Clyde's hands clenched. Did she say anything? Mabel hesitated. She saw the healer yesterday. Clyde's breath caught. Why? Mabel did not answer. She did not need to. Clyde turned and ran. Rufus Voss stood in his workroom, grinding herbs. He looked up when Clyde burst through the door. Your Majesty, where is she? Rufus's face was grim. I do not know. Do not lie to me. I am not lying. She left before I could stop her. Clyde crossed the room in 2 strides. He grabbed Rufus by the collar and slammed him against the wall. Why did she leave? Rufus met his eyes. Because she is pregnant. Clyde's hands went slack. He stepped back. Pregnant. The word echoed in his mind. Impossible. But Rufus's face was honest. Certain. How? Clyde whispered. The poison has been weakening for months. Your body has been healing. It is not impossible anymore. Clyde's legs gave out. He sank into a chair and pressed his hands against his face. A child. His child. Cecily was carrying his child. And she had run. Why? He asked hoarsely. Rufus's voice was gentle. Because she is terrified. Clyde looked up. Of me? Of the court. Your Majesty, you were declared sterile. If she claims the child is yours, they will call her a liar. They will execute her. Clyde's chest tightened. I would never let that happen. She does not know that. Clyde stood, his hands clenched into fists. Where would she go? Rufus shook his head. I do not know. She did not tell me. Clyde turned toward the door. Your Majesty, what will you do? Clyde's voice was cold. Absolute. I will find her. Clyde called his council immediately. Harlan Finch, Emmett Bonner, and Rufus Voss stood before him in the war room. Cecily Turlow has fled the castle, Clyde said without preamble. I need her found. Harlan frowned. The servant? Yes. Why? Clyde's jaw tightened. Because she is carrying my child. Silence filled the room. Emmett spoke first. Your Majesty, that is impossible. You were declared. I know what I was declared. Harlan stepped forward. Clyde, think carefully. If you claim this child, the court will erupt. They will question your judgment, your authority. I do not care. You should. Clyde turned on him. His eyes were storm gray. Furious. I spent 7 years believing I was broken, that I had no future, that I was worth nothing. His voice dropped to something dangerous. And then she came. She healed me. She gave me hope. And now she is carrying my child. He leaned forward, his hands pressed against the table. I will find her. I will claim her. And I will claim my children. Anyone who challenges me will regret it. Harlan stared at him. Then he nodded slowly. Very well, Your Majesty. Where do we start? Clyde hunted Cecily for 3 weeks. He sent soldiers to every village, every border town, every inn and safe house. He offered gold for information, protection for anyone who helped her. Nothing. Cecily had vanished. Clyde grew desperate. He stopped sleeping. He stopped eating. He spent every waking hour searching. Harlan found him in the war room late one night, staring at maps. Clyde, you need to rest. I cannot. You will collapse. I do not care. Harlan sighed. He sat down across from him. Tell me why she matters so much. Clyde's hands clenched. Because she is mine. That is not a reason. Clyde looked up. His eyes were hollow, exhausted. Because she is the only person who ever looked at me and saw something worth saving. Harlan's expression softened. Clyde's voice broke. I cannot lose her. Then we will find her. They found her in a village 3 days from the castle. A farmer's wife named Leona had seen a young woman matching Cecily's description. She was staying at a small cottage on the edge of the woods. Clyde rode through the night. He reached the cottage at dawn. He dismounted and walked to the door. He did not knock. He pushed the door open. Cecily was sitting by the fire, her hands pressed against her stomach. She looked up when he entered. Her face went pale. Clyde. He crossed the room slowly. He stopped a few feet away from her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Clyde dropped to his knees. Cecily's breath hitched. Clyde's hands pressed against the floor. His head bowed. Please, he whispered. Please do not run again. Cecily's eyes burned. You should not be here. Why? Because they will kill me for this. Aver. Clyde looked up. His eyes were fierce. Absolute. No one will touch you. Cecily shook her head. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You do not understand. They will call me a liar. They will say the child is not yours. Then I will prove them wrong. How? Clyde stood slowly. He crossed the room and knelt in front of her. He took her hands in his. Because I will claim you, publicly, before the court, before the realm. His voice was steady. Certain. You are mine, Cecily. And so is our child. Cecily's breath came in sobs. They will not believe you. Then they will learn. He pulled her into his arms. He held her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. I will not lose you, he whispered. I will not lose our child. I will fight the entire realm if I have to. Cecily's hands gripped his shirt. She buried her face against his chest. And for the first time since she fled, she let herself hope. Clyde did not take Cecily back to the castle immediately. They stayed in the cottage for 2 days, long enough for her to rest, long enough for him to convince her that she would not face the court alone. On the 3rd morning, they rode back together. Cecily sat in front of Clyde on his horse, wrapped in his cloak. His arm stayed locked around her waist. Protective. Possessive. When they reached the castle gates, the guards stared. Word spread quickly. The Alpha King had returned, and he was not alone. Clyde took Cecily directly to his chambers. He did not hide her. He did not sneak her through side doors. He walked through the main halls with her at his side. Servants whispered. Guards stared. Nobles turned and watched them pass. Clyde ignored them all. When they reached his chambers, he locked the door behind them and turned to face her. You are safe here. Cecily's hands were shaking. For how long? Forever. Clyde, the court, will answer to me. He crossed the room and cupped her face in his hands. Listen to me. I know you are afraid, but I will not let anyone hurt you. Do you understand? Cecily's eyes burned. What if they force you to choose between me and the crown? Clyde's jaw tightened. Then I choose you. You cannot. I can, and I will. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. You are mine, Cecily. Nothing will change that. Rufus Voss arrived an hour later. He examined Cecily carefully. He checked her pulse, her breathing. He pressed his hand against her stomach and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his face was grim. Twins. Cecily's breath caught. What? You are carrying twins. Clyde's hand tightened on Cecily's shoulder. Rufus looked at him. Your Majesty, this changes everything. Twins are rare, powerful. The court will not be able to deny them. Clyde's voice was cold. They will not deny anything, because I will not give them the chance. Rufus nodded slowly. What will you do? I will call the council, tomorrow, and I will claim her publicly. The council chamber erupted the moment Clyde made his announcement. You cannot be serious, Harlan said. I am completely serious. Clyde, she is a servant. She is my mate. Silence fell. Emmett leaned forward. Your Majesty, the court will never accept this. You were declared sterile. If you claim these children, they will accuse you of lying. Or worse, they will accuse her of adultery. Clyde's eyes were ice. Then they will be wrong. How do you know? Because Rufus will prove it. All eyes turned to the healer. Rufus stood slowly. He faced the council with his hands clasped behind his back. The poison that nearly killed His Majesty 7 years ago has been weakening for months. Cecily Turlow carries ancestral healer's blood. Her presence, her touch, they have been neutralizing the poison without her knowledge. Harlan frowned. Are you saying she healed him? Yes. And you can prove this? Rufus nodded. I have been monitoring His Majesty's condition for months. The improvement coincides exactly with Cecily's arrival. The sterility was never permanent. It was poison damage. And that damage has been reversing. Emmett's eyes widened. So the children are his. Silence stretched across the chamber. Then Harlan spoke. The court will still fight this. Clyde's voice was absolute. Let them. The announcement was made 3 days later. The entire court gathered in the throne room. Nobles from every corner of the realm stood shoulder to shoulder. Whispers filled the air like smoke. Clyde stood at the front of the room, his crown on his head. His hands rested on the arms of the throne. Beside him, Cecily stood in a simple gown. Her hands were folded in front of her. Her face was pale, terrified. Clyde reached out and took her hand. The whispers stopped. Clyde's voice echoed across the chamber. 7 years ago, I was declared sterile. The court mourned the loss of an heir. My Luna left me, and I believed I had no future. He paused. I was wrong. He turned to Cecily. His hand tightened on hers. This woman healed me, not with spells or rituals, with presence, with care, with something deeper than medicine. His voice dropped to something fierce. She carries my children, twins, and I will claim them before they are born. The chamber erupted. Voices rose in protest. Nobles shouted accusations. Some demanded proof. Others called for Cecily's arrest. Clyde stood. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Anyone who challenges my claim will answer to me personally. The room fell silent. Clyde's eyes swept across the crowd. Cold, absolute. I am your king. I have ruled you for 15 years. I have bled for this realm. I have sacrificed everything. He stepped forward, and now I am reclaiming what is mine. He turned to Cecily. He pulled her forward until she stood beside him. This woman is under my protection. These children are my heirs. Anyone who harms them, anyone who threatens them, will be considered an enemy of the crown. No one spoke. Clyde's hand pressed against Cecily's stomach. Protective, possessive. These are my children. And I will die before I let anyone take them from me. The court accepted the claim, not because they believed it, because they feared Clyde's wrath more than they doubted his word. But not everyone accepted it quietly. 3 nobles withdrew their support. 2 council members resigned, and 1 man, a lord named Rufus McGraw, challenged Clyde openly. You ask us to believe a servant healed you, that she carries your children, that the healers were wrong. He sneered. You ask us to believe in miracles. Clyde's voice was ice. I ask you to believe in your king. And if we cannot? Clyde stepped forward. His hand rested on the hilt of his sword. Then you can leave. Rufus McGraw stared at him. Then he turned and walked out. Clyde watched him go. He did not care. Because Cecily was safe, the children were claimed, and nothing else mattered. That night, Clyde found Cecily standing near the window in his chambers. Her hands pressed against her stomach. Her face was pale. They hate me, she whispered. Clyde crossed the room. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. His hands covered hers on her stomach. They do not matter. They are your court. You are my future. Cecily's eyes closed. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Clyde turned her around. He cupped her face in his hands. Listen to me. I do not care what they think. I do not care what they say. You are mine. These children are mine. And I will protect you with everything I have. Cecily's hands gripped his wrists. What if something goes wrong? Then we will face it together. He leaned down and kissed her. Soft, gentle. I love you, Cecily. It was the first time he had said it. Cecily's breath hitched. Clyde, I love you, and I will spend the rest of my life proving it. Cecily's tears spilled over. I love you too. Clyde pulled her against his chest. He held her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. And in that moment, he knew he would burn the entire realm to the ground before he let anyone hurt her. The pregnancy was not easy. Cecily's body struggled under the weight of twins. She was sick constantly. Her energy faded quickly. Some days she could barely stand. Rufus monitored her closely. He prescribed rest, herbs, healing baths, but nothing eased the strain. Clyde stayed by her side. He canceled council meetings. He ignored political disputes. He refused to leave the castle. Harlan confronted him one afternoon in the war room. Clyde, you cannot abandon your duties. I am not abandoning them. You have not attended council in 3 weeks. Because my mate needs me. Harlan's jaw tightened. The realm needs you. Clyde turned on him. His eyes were fierce. Absolute. The realm has had me for 15 years. It can wait 3 more months. Harlan stared at him. Then he sighed. You are a fool. Clyde's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Perhaps. She has changed you. Yes. Is that a good thing? Clyde thought for a moment. Then he nodded. Yes, it is. The labor began 2 weeks early. Cecily woke in the middle of the night, gasping. Pain tore through her body. Sharp. Relentless. Clyde was awake instantly. He lit the lamps and sent for Rufus. The healer arrived within minutes. He examined Cecily quickly. His face was grim. The twins are coming. Clyde's hands clenched. It is too early. I know. But we cannot stop it. Cecily cried out. Her hands gripped the sheets. Her body arched. Clyde knelt beside the bed. He took her hand in his. I am here. Cecily's eyes were wild, terrified. I cannot do this. Yes, you can. Clyde, look at me. She did. Clyde's eyes were steady, certain. You are the strongest person I know. You healed me when no one else could. You gave me hope when I had none. You can do this. Cecily's breath came in sobs. What if I lose them? You will not. You cannot know that. Clyde's hand tightened on hers. Then we will fight together. The labor lasted 14 hours. Cecily screamed. She bled. She begged for it to stop. Clyde stayed by her side. He held her hand. He whispered promises. He refused to leave. Rufus worked tirelessly. He gave her herbs for the pain. He tried to slow the bleeding. He prayed to the moon, but the twins were stubborn, just like their father. When the first child finally came, Cecily collapsed. Her breathing was shallow. Her face was white. Rufus handed the baby to Mabel. Clean her. Clyde stared at the tiny, squirming infant. A girl. His daughter. Cecily, he whispered. Look. But Cecily's eyes were closed. Her body was limp. Rufus's face went grim. The second child is stuck. Clyde's breath caught. What? I need to turn it. Now. Clyde's hands clenched. Will she survive? Rufus did not answer. He worked quickly. His hands moved with precision. Cecily's body convulsed. She cried out weakly. Clyde pressed his forehead against hers. Stay with me. Please, stay with me. Minutes felt like hours. Then finally, the second child came. A boy. Rufus handed him to another servant. Then he turned back to Cecily. Her breathing was almost gone. No, Clyde whispered. No, no, no. Rufus pressed his hands against her chest. He closed his eyes and muttered words Clyde did not understand. Healing magic. Old. Desperate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Cecily gasped. Her eyes flew open. Clyde's breath shattered. Cecily! She turned her head slowly. Her eyes found his. The babies? Clyde's voice broke. They are here. They are perfect. Cecily's eyes filled with tears. Let me see them. Mabel brought the twins forward. She placed them carefully in Cecily's arms. Cecily stared down at them. One girl, one boy, both tiny, both perfect. They are beautiful, she whispered. Clyde's hand covered hers. Like their mother. Cecily looked up at him. Her eyes were exhausted, joyful. We did it. Clyde leaned down and kissed her forehead. You did it. The court gathered the next morning. Clyde stood in the throne room, holding his daughter. Cecily sat beside him, holding their son. The nobles stared, silent, stunned. Clyde's voice echoed across the chamber. I present to you the future of this realm. My children, my heirs. No one spoke. Clyde's eyes swept across the crowd. Cold, absolute. 7 years ago, I was declared sterile. The court mourned. My Luna left, and I believed I had no future. He paused. But I was wrong. He turned to Cecily. His hand rested on her shoulder. This woman healed me. She gave me hope. She gave me a future. His voice dropped to something fierce. And now she has given me heirs. He lifted his daughter higher. This is Mabel Cross, Princess of the Realm. Then he gestured to Cecily and their son. And this is Emmett Cross, Prince of the Realm. The chamber erupted in applause, not because they believed, because they had no choice. Clyde had claimed his legacy, and no one could take it from him. That night, Clyde sat by the fire in his chambers. Cecily lay in the bed behind him, sleeping deeply. The twins were in cradles beside her. Harlan entered quietly. He sat in the chair across from Clyde. "You did it," he said softly. Clyde nodded. "Yes. The court will fall in line." "I know." Harlan studied him for a moment. "You look different." Clyde's lips twitched. "How?" "Alive." Clyde glanced back at Cecily. At the twins. At the family he thought he would never have. "I am," he said quietly. Harlan stood. "Then I am happy for you, my friend." He left. Clyde stood and walked to the bed. He looked down at Cecily, at the woman who had saved him, who had healed him, who had given him everything. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Thank you," he whispered. Cecily stirred. Her eyes opened slightly. "For what?" Clyde's hand cupped her cheek. "For making me believe in hope again." Cecily's hand covered his. "You gave me a home." Clyde's throat tightened. "You gave me a future." She smiled. Then her eyes closed again. Clyde stayed beside her. He watched her sleep. He watched the twins breathe. And for the first time in 7 years, he was not afraid. Because he was no longer alone. He was loved. And he had a legacy worth fighting for. 5 years later, the castle was no longer silent. Children's laughter echoed through the halls. Maybelle chased Emmett around the throne room while Cecily tried to catch them. Clyde watched from his throne, his lips curved in a rare smile. The court had accepted them. Not easily, but completely. Cecily was no longer a servant. She was queen, Clyde's mate, the mother of the heirs, and she had healed more than just Clyde's body. She had healed his heart. Clyde stood and crossed the room. He caught Cecily around the waist and pulled her against him. "You are supposed to be catching them," she said, laughing. Clyde kissed her neck. "Let them run." Cecily turned in his arms. Her eyes were bright, joyful. "You have changed," she said softly. Clyde's hand cupped her cheek. "Because of you." "No, because you chose to." Clyde leaned down and kissed her. Soft, gentle. "I love you," he murmured. "I love you too." The twins crashed into their legs, giggling. Clyde scooped them up, one in each arm. They shrieked with delight. Cecily watched them, her heart full. This was her life now. Not invisible, not alone. Loved, and she would never take it for granted. Because she knew what it was like to have nothing. And now she had everything. Some kings inherit legacy. Others earn it through loss, patience, and love. If you believe broken men can still build futures, welcome to Ariel Romance Library. Subscribe. Stay with us. The next story is already waiting.